Welcome, and I think I have to apologize because I didn't write the slides of the title of this presentation. So, yeah, we'll see how it goes. I got sidetracked, I think. But to entice you to stay, louder, yes. So to entice you to stay, I can mention that this presentation was partly done by child labor. Well, he's my son. So this is me, and that's me according to my son. I'm from Sweden. I've been involved with Kselftest for roughly a year. So why are we here? I think I got sidetracked here, but well, let's see. Trying to explain what Kselftest is and how we in LKFT run Kselftest, what we contributed and what we plan to do in the future. So what is Kselftest? That's a set of tests. Let's see. A set of unit tests and regression tests that is in the kernel tree. It's primarily for kernel developers, but testers and users can also run it. It's there to find regressions.
Can you speak a little bit louder? We can barely hear you.
That's really good. I'm going to try. So when do we run Kselftest? When there's a new commit to any kernel that we track, we run our CI system and we build an open embedded image that contains our kernel root file system and Kselftest. And we run it on real hardware in our Lava lab. And how do we run? Which version of Kselftest do we use? For LKFT, we are trying to test long-term support kernels. And we run that with the latest released Kselftest. So today the latest release is 5.0, so we run Kselftest from 5.0 against all the LTS versions that is out there. And today it's 4.4, 4.9, 4.14, and 4.19. For mainline and next, we run whatever is in tree. We'll have Linaro contributed to Kselftest, or around Kselftest. I would say email reporting, dashboard, config fragments, and bug fixes. Well, these are some icons that I will use throughout the presentation. And it's apparently a rocket and a football and a pirate. So this is the template we use when we send out email reports on all the LTS and next kernels. We don't do that for mainline yet. Not sure if we're going to do that either. So you could see the summary with kernel versions, where we downloaded it from and which branch, so on and so forth. And then what I cut out was the regression, if there are regressions, and failures and fixes and as well. I should have left better. And if you don't think the email is enough, you can go to qa-reports.linaro.org and see and drill down to Kselftest and the specific test that is run. And you can compare against different kernels and different boards, which could be handy. That's something that the email report doesn't do. So, framework changes. Before it was quite hard to figure out what kernel fragments you needed to enable in order to run certain tests. And now there is a file in Kselftest in every subdirectory that you could run, so you know what fragments you need to enable. And there's in the top makefile you can do Kselftest merge, and that will merge in all the fragments that you need to run all Kselftest. Everything. We also improved so basically you need to run headers install before you build Kselftest. And before you had to build that separately, but now it's integrated as well. So we try to do bug fixes as well in LKFT, or we report the bugs only. And there are two types of bugs. Either it's a kernel bug or it's a test bug. And we do triaging to try to figure out if it is a kernel bug or a bug in the Kselftest. And then we try to correct it and fix it or just report it as instead. So, future plans. Would like to try to get Kselftest to be built with a relative path. Actually, I'm not sure if it works with an absolute path either now, since I think I broke that when I did the fix for headers install. But that's something I need to fix as well. It would be nice to be able to check if a test has, if you can do a runtime check to see if a feature is enabled or not, instead of just failing. Yep.
We should definitely talk about that because there's stuff that 0day has and Fuego has that do this kconfig checks. I think the LTP just added it, so we should talk about harmonizing that. That would be great.
Yep, agree. Was it on? Yeah. And then instead of using the config fragments, it should be doable to use an allmodconfig kernel and build everything as modules. But today it doesn't even boot. That's something we should work on. Right. Today there is include files that is copied from headers installed into the tools directory, and we mix and match that in Kselftest today. And we need to sort out somehow, either use the tools directories headers or headers installed. We shouldn't mix them. And we should enable Kselftest in kernelCI as well. That would be good. Quick. Questions? No?
On your email, are you using your slide that talked about submitting email to the kernel mailing list or whoever is the kernel list? I think it was like one of the early ones. Yeah, that one. Are you guys, is that something you wrote yourself or are you using an existing tool? Oh, sorry. Let me rephrase it for the recording. So on the email reporting, did you guys write that yourself? Like, is it an LKFT tools, or is that existing tool you're using for email formatting? Okay, so that's all open source already?
Yep.
Oh, great. Thank you.
It comes from Squad. Oh, does it come from Squad? Yeah. It's a Squad template.
This is a command line wrapper that just calls Squad to generate the report. So Squad has email templating support, and so we have different templates for different reports, and this tool just wraps that to get like the latest report for a given branch.
That's awesome. I gotta figure out how to use that tool.
Any questions?
So one issue I ran into recently trying to get tip kselftest working on an older released kernel is that there was a bug fix that tip kselftest relied on. It was basically testing that that bug fix was present, and so it would fail on older kernels. So I think somewhere in there you had a slide on making that combination work, and it was focused on adding tests for features so that you could basically skip a test if it depended on a feature that was not present. Yeah, that one. So I guess assuming it sounds like that's a goal that you have, is to make tip kselftest work on older kernels. So I guess I'm just wondering if you guys have had discussions about how you'll work. I mean, I guess the upstream answer, so I submitted a patch naively to have a particular test in kselftest, just check the kernel version and skip a test if it for this bug fix. And of course I got told you need to backport the fix, and that's the right way to do it, which is fine. But I mean that means now that everybody who has those older kernels, product kernels, whatever, need to backport that fix. So is this something that's on your guys' radar? And is your answer to that just to try and get the word out? And for Linaro kernels, we just need to be more diligent about backporting fixes like that?
I'm not the speaker, but I've got a comment.
Yeah.
So one of
this is an issue that we run into a lot with LTP. Is LTP has several tests that will hang a kernel, an old kernel, and you don't want to disable the test because you still have the bug in the kernel, right? And so you have this kind of, you have a bug that you don't want to just add it to the skip list, and it's infeasible to backport, but you have to kind of keep it annotated that it's still there, and that your management knows, hey, we're shipping this kernel, it's got this bug in it. But a lot of QA departments have this really weird notion that that all the lights have to be green across the board before they'll ship, which is completely unrealistic, right? There are known bugs, and you have to allow bugs to go into a won't fix state, right? A known won't fix state, or but you have to keep testing them because you don't want it to anyway. So I don't know if that answered your question, but I think that part of the solution is allowing, as an industry, we have to allow tests that fail to still run on kernels that they fail on. But you might want to be able to categorize them so that you know that's a known failure, it's expected, don't freak out, whatever the appropriate response is for your QA policy.
Yeah, adding to Tim, if you look at the LTP and the Kselftest, LTP is pretty mature in terms of runtime test. So you could have a kernel version check, so it will find the kernel version and accordingly it will take a decision like to the run or skip. And LTP do have a skip list where you can specify the test case name. According to the test case name, it could skip. There are two ways to skip the things, like one is at runtime, one is like static way. If you look at the Kselftest, it's not that mature enough to do all this kind of a framework and do any runtime checks. So if we get to that point, probably that could be great. As you know, like we cannot backport everything. So if you look at the BPF tree, currently net BPF, BPF next, so there are test cases which are just generated or just created, and they tend to work on the tip of the kernel. So if you just go to like stable RCS, like it won't work on the old kernel. So it's a known thing. If we have contacted multiple maintainers to backport those things, but they're saying like it's a low priority for us. So till they fix it, then till they backport those things, till that time it will be like a won't fix or in that state only. So we cannot do much regarding the fixing it. So currently we are just reporting the things. We are not really spending, concentrating on the backporting the things.
So my understanding that the old Kselftest, not I think that the Kselftest running on any kernel is it's too dangerous. But the latest stable kernel, all the latest stable kernels should pass the Kselftest, because that all the the latest one.
I can run on mainline right now, will crash it though. So.
Yeah. And also crashing kernel test is that's the different story, I think. Yeah, because that is the test case. Test framework cannot treat correctly the kernel crashing bug.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Be able to handle it. Oh. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, still we are not running ftrace test case that you have been maintaining on ARM64 for some reason, because it's been hanging. So it's still, we need a fix. I did. There is a bug on you.
I know of a bug that went 3 years, known bug that could crash the kernel, and went 3 years before it got fixed in mainline. And the maintainer knew it. Really? Yeah. That happens.
More questions, comments?
Yeah, actually, I think that if you or the Kselftest found the bug and the report to the maintainer, fixing that bug even in an older kernel, older stable kernel, that's a responsibility for the maintainer, not the test case, test framework.
So this is a kselftest problem, and it's even new features that are in the kernel, those tests that test those new features, those tests fail on older kernels often instead of, like they should check to see if the kernel supports that feature and skip rather than just failing, which is what actually happens in most cases, I think.
Well, I still think in some cases you still even want, in some cases, I mean, if there's a new feature, you don't want the top layers of your software stack to depend on that feature. And so if you actually create a dependency on some new feature, like say the 64-bit time things now, right? You want to know, one of the things that we want to use testing for is to kick our management into upgrading the kernels. And so you don't want to just not run the test because then then it's like, oh, everything's green, ship it. It's like, well, no. It's like, we skipped all these tests that 2038 tests because we knew they didn't even apply to this kernel, but you still have the bugs. So, or missing features or however you want to.
Recently, we have tens of bugs which have been reported on Kselftest mailing list and open mailing list. So we have got really good replies from them saying that they are able to find out the root cause of the problem. It's a real kernel crash, and they are able to fix in according to that. So it's really helpful. And recently, there is update. Probably Dan could explain. We are sending reports every day for Linux Next, wherever is the triggers. The email report that we are doing for Linux Next, could you just add to that? Every day Linux Next with the kselftest.
Yes, and add what? We run that and... What? Oh, sorry. We run kselftest on Linux Next, and yes, we send out the results to the list, to the kselftest list. Yeah.
There are a lot of failures?
It's a lot of failures, yes. Right? Yep. I'm confused. What should I say more?
So the thing is that there is still room for improvement for kselftest.
Yep.
This is my Linux Next folder. I think it's going to the Linux Next list.
Ooh.
You now have to tell us. You said, ooh.
I'm sorry. It goes to the Linux Next list. No, it doesn't. It goes to kselftest.
Right.
And not to Linux Next. Right.
So should we include that?
Yes. We should. Yeah. Thank you.